A mortgage product is complex, and it really is not a one size fits all type of product. So it's very important to pay attention to the needs of the customer. And it's important to work with a lender that's got a variety of lending options available, plus experienced loan officers to support execution of that product.
Welcome to Business Ninjas, brought to you by WriteForMe, where you'll hear from business leaders who are out there growing their business and slaying it every day. Learn from the masters. Let's get started.
Bill, thank you for joining us today on Business Ninjas. We're excited to have you on the show. Maybe we could start by having you give your role in the company, give us the name of the company and the website and where you're based.
Sure thing. So I'm Philip Tidwell. I am VP of Marketing Operations for Cherry Creek Mortgage Company. Technically, I work for the holdings company because we support a variety of different lenders kind of under our parent company. But our main company is Cherry Creek Mortgage that we support on the marketing side. Our main company website is cherrycreekmortgage.com.
Great. Okay. And where's the company? Well, I guess Cherry Creek itself, where is that based versus the parent company?
So our company headquarters is in Greenwood Village, Colorado, which is basically Metro Denver. Yep. The company was started 30 plus years ago in kind of a city within Denver. It's referred to as Cherry Creek, or it's more like an area. It's not technically a city. So.
Right. Okay. And then maybe you can give us a little bit of a bio about what your career arc has been to bring you to the present opportunity.
Sure thing. When I came out of grad school, I got started actually in training. I was hired into a training organization, a sales training organization, and I did some instructional design work. Did that for a few years, learned a lot about selling because I was doing training work for a selling company. And then had a job transition where I ended up in the mortgage business on the sales side. Did that for a couple of years, both inside, outside sales, and then migrated over into operations also. So I learned a little bit about, product structures and underwriting, that sort of work. Then came back full circle into a training role in the mortgage industry, and then did that for a few years. That eventually evolved into an internal communications role, which then grew to encompass marketing communications, and then kind of continued that path into a director role and ultimately my current role as VP. Kind of the thread that flows through that entire arc, if you will, is communication, knowing how to write well, knowing how to synthesize information, knowing what your audience is, and then tailoring that communication message into that audience in whatever delivery mechanism you're required to at that point. So training, it's still communicating. I still have a very clear point and a very clear audience, but the style of the communication and the way it's supported is different, obviously, from the marketing side.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. And then maybe you can give us, the elevator pitch for the company, right? But also maybe how you position yourselves in that industry.
Sure thing. I would say that the elevator pitch for us is that a mortgage product is complex, and it really is not a one size fits all type of product. So it's very important to pay attention to the needs of the customer. And it's important to work with a lender that's got a variety of lending options available, plus experienced loan officers to support execution of that product. So that's kind of my elevator pitch, at least from the marketing support side of things.
And then inside of that world, I'm guessing you focus maybe more on residential than commercial, but how do you specialize inside of that world? And are there geographic parameters around where you focus?
Gotcha. Great questions. So in terms of our specialties, I would probably divide it into two primary verticals. You've got traditional forward mortgages, but then we also have reverse mortgages that we offer.
Okay.
And then there's some nuances within that. On the forward side, there's, jumbo options. Then there's specific, support that you can do for various government insured programs such as VA, USDA, et cetera. So those are the two primary splits, though, would be the forward and the reverse sides.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yep.
And then is it a nationwide sort of thing where you're focused on across all 50 states in the US?
We are currently licensed in 45 states.
Wow.
So
Okay.
you've got to be licensed in the specific states in which you're operating. Our target is to get to all 50. Some of them have a few more complexities connected to what's expected at the state level in terms of the registration requirements. So we're still kind of working through that. We started in Colorado, and then we primarily were operating, say, west of the Mississippi, just for a geographic breakdown.
Yeah.
But in the last few years, we've started expanding further east and further northeast.
Wow. I mean, 45 out of 50, that's a lot of expansion. That's fantastic.
Yeah, exactly. And it's complex. I'm not sure, don't quote me on this, but I've heard that the mortgage business is almost as regulated as like pharmaceuticals and medical industries. It's one of the more highly regulated ones.
Yeah.
So we have to pay attention, like on the advertising side, to general requirements for advertising compliance, kind of at a federal, national level. But then you also have carve outs at the state level in terms of what's required for disclaimers, what has to go on websites, what has to go on advertising. So you have to always kind of pay attention to that when you move into a new state.
Right.
What do they expect? What does reporting look like, et cetera?
Interesting. Okay. And how did the COVID era affect your business? I mean, I guess depending on which part of the country you're in, it could have been a crazy busy time or not. So what was it like navigating through these changing times and helping folks get done what they needed to get done?
Well, I think the first answer to the question is the actual technology bit. Like, can you operate in an environment where all of a sudden lots of people have to be remote, et cetera? I think one of the things that kind of worked for us was the fact that we were based in Colorado. So we had always invested heavily in like tech infrastructure, because you never know when a blizzard's going to kind of come through and kind of create some challenges around your operational structure. So for a while, we've had the tech platform in place for our employees to work either at a home office or at a headquarters. So it was actually not that big of a lift for us from the tech side to just say, hey, everybody work from home now. Our company, especially in the early part of the lockdowns, had most of the executives kind of in the office, and there were a few functions, for example, like post-closing, et cetera, that needed to be in the office because they had to actually handle physical files.
Right.
As I understand it, like our underwriting team, they're mostly digital. They can kind of work from anywhere, but there comes a point in the loan manufacturing cycle where you have to package things up, scan them, get them ready to send out to the investor. So we had a few units that had to actually physically touch things that were in the office.
Gotcha.
But for the most part, in terms of operations, we were remote. In terms of impact on our business, the mortgage industry was gangbusters during the lockdowns and COVID. Interest rates were just historically low at that point in time. So, doing mortgages was like shooting fish in a barrel. But as you know, everything started kind of piling up on the back end of COVID. That kind of led us to the doorway that we're in right now, which seems like a recession. I think some folks are calling it that. Some are kind of hesitant to call it that, but there's certainly some dysfunction happening now in the market. And, as the Fed has been seeking to combat that, rates have been creeping up. So now where a lot of companies took it on the chin when COVID hit during that initial period, we were thriving. But then once those interest rates started kicking up, and then you layer that with housing cost kind of escalating over the last few years.
Right.
All of a sudden you've got affordability problems, and then our industry is, now kind of taking it on the chin in terms of applications being down, not as many people looking to buy, et cetera. So right now we're looking for those rates to hopefully start continue on the path down. Thankfully, they're starting to trend down and have been for a couple months, but we'd like to see them pull down a little bit more, so we can create a little bit more liveliness in the housing market and that purchase market.
Gotcha. Okay. And then as you look at, so you kind of broke down two sides of the business that you focus on. Maybe there's an ideal customer persona in each one of those that you could kind of give folks context around. So what are the types of customers that you work well with in each side of the business, and
Sure.
what are they struggling with, and how are you helping them get there?
Yeah, absolutely. If you look at the way our content is kind of broken down across our owned assets, we have personas that are sort of matched to specific products. So we really focus on products, and in that set, we also do some additional breakdowns of like low down payment products as well. So those could be categorized into a couple of different parent products, because you've got low down payment for FHA, as well as Fannie and Freddie options. So we do have kind of a low down payment persona, like a first time buyer with not a lot of cash on hand. But then we also have some personas that are tied to more specific products, like VA, for example, somebody that's of a military background and is eligible for that type of financing. USDA, for example, which is more rural, low down payment, but looking for folks that are kind of outside the city limits in one of those USDA zones. So most of our content is kind of tied into those specific types of products that we offer. And then the other key persona, again, kind of getting back to what I referenced earlier in our conversation, would be the reverse mortgage customer. That would be somebody that's 62 and older. There are a few state carve-outs again for that product, but that's the general guidance that you're looking at. 62 and older with a significant amount of equity in their product, in their home.
Right.
So those are kind of the way I would categorize our personas.
Gotcha. Okay. And then I guess the last thing to cover would be, what's the company strategy for outreach? Where are you active? Where can people find you? What social media channels are you supporting?
Great question. We are, of course, we have corporate websites, but then we also have invested a lot of work and money into Google My Business as well as Facebook. Our tech platform is pretty complex. We've got like our parent sites, but then we feed content down to the loan officer level as well. So that extends to our web structure as well as our social media platforms also.
Right. All right.
Yeah.
Great.
So we've partnered with some different vendors out there to make sure that our brand standards are consistent across the platforms. But then also getting back to the regulatory side of things, we've got to make sure that all the required, federal and state disclaimers are populating. Also paying attention to where individual loan officers are licensed as well. So you may have state disclaimers that need to flow into certain, lockups on Facebook, for example, for a loan officer that's in California, versus Colorado, which is a little bit more flexible and doesn't require a specific state disclaimer for that individual that's licensed in Colorado.
Yeah, that's a lot of moving parts. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, we're never bored.
Yeah, I bet not. Well, Phil, thanks for coming on the show today. We appreciate it. And it's going to be great to see you guys go on to new heights as the year progresses. So thank you.
Absolutely. Appreciate the invite. It's really nice talking to you, Jamie.